Welcome to the Arabic, Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies taster session today. Obviously, this was supposed to be a face-to-face event, and because of the circumstances, we've moved it online, and we are still feeling our way with this technology. So we're very glad that you've decided to take some time to join us today and learn more about the program. So as we've said at the beginning, this session is being recorded, and we will send the recording to you in an email after the session, along with a lot of other resources and different ways that you can contact us and find support and information after the session. The way that this is going to be structured is in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Dr. Samar Alafandi, who's going to give us an overview of the program. Then we're going to hear from John Lees, who can talk us through some of the student finance you may be entitled to, and a little bit about how student finance is structured. But we will also be sending you a link to another online session specifically about student finance later this week. So it's going to be just some very key messages. Then we'll actually have a short taster session from our colleague Abdul Basid Sheikh, who's one of the tutors on the program, and he will be taking us through a short lecture on Islamic Spain. And there'll be various points at which you can ask questions. Our presenters will all stop every so often to see if there's anything burning that comes up for you while you're going through the session. Please do use that chat function on the right hand side. And just to reiterate, in case you've just joined us, the way to do that is to click on the cross in the purple panel, which will open up a panel on the right hand side, and in there you'll see a speech bubble on the left. When you open that, you'll be able to type any questions that you want to us. Okay, I think I'm ready to hand over to you now, Samar. So I'll take us to the slides we need to be on, and please do tell us more about the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia. Hello, everyone. My name is Samar Al-Afendi, and I am the program manager. I would like to welcome and thank you all for your interest in the Arabic, Middle Eastern, and Islamic Studies program. As Olivia said, that I'm going to give you an overview of the program, and I'm happy to take questions during the presentation. As the title shows, the program covers three main subjects. Arabic is one of the fastest growing languages in the world. It is spoken by over 300 million people. Middle Eastern Studies, which is in demand as a result of the political and cultural changes in the Middle East and North Africa. Study of Islam is a growing area in order to understand its role in the 21st century and beyond. Just a second. Yep. Okay, here we are. This pathway is taught over 1 year full-time or 2 years part-time. The part-time program is taught 2 days a week, providing flexibility for those with work and family commitments in order to obtain a degree from a prestigious university. The full-time program is taught over 3 to 4 days a week, depending on the chosen degree destination. On completion, you may progress onto of the following degrees offered by the Department of Arabic, Islamic, and Middle Eastern Studies at the University of Leeds. As our program feeds into these degrees, the degrees are BA in Islamic Studies, BA in Middle Eastern Studies, and each one combined with the Arabic language. To gain an entry to this program, you need 3 A-levels at grade C or above, GCSEs in English language and maths at grade C or 4 or above, and they are also a prerequisite. We will provide matriculation tests for mature students, i.e. those over 21 years of age who do not possess these formal qualifications. I would like to pause here and see if anyone got a question. Seem to be, you are okay? Okay, we'll carry on. The program curriculum covers a wide range of subjects. Some are compulsory and others are optional. Again, it is depending on their chosen degree program. The compulsory modules are academic development through the study of the Abrahamic faith. This module introduces students to key academic skills and provides an appreciation of the main theological concepts within Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. Key texts in Middle Eastern religions provides an in-depth analysis of the development of the key concepts found in the religious texts of the Middle East and how they influenced societies from the past to the present day. And the third compulsory module is Islamic history and civilization, which looks at the achievements of the Arabs and Muslims during the Golden Age in Islam, from the 7th to the 14th century. Besides the compulsory modules, you have to study another 3 modules from this optional list, depending on your chosen degree program. We have Arabic modules, which allows students to develop Arabic language skills from scratch. Introduction to the Middle East provides students with an excellent grounding and appreciation of the history, culture, and religions of the Middle East from the 3rd century to the present day. Introduction to Islam gives the student a strong foundational knowledge of the development of the Islamic faith from its conception until the present day. Students will have an appreciation of how Islam shaped global history and what impact it has had on societies in recent times. A popular module, Women, Culture, and Islam. This module looks at the key challenges facing Muslim women today across the globe. Issues facing on how Muslim women are received by Western and Islamic societies will be explored considering religion and culture. Another module is Islam in Western societies. This module looks at the key challenges facing Muslim societies in Europe and North America. Now the progression. Once you have completed the certificate in Arabic, Middle Eastern, and Islamic studies on a full or part-time basis, you have effectively completed a third of a 3-year degree. Studying a further 2 years full-time with the Arabic, Islamic, and Middle Eastern Studies department will allow you to graduate with a bachelor's in Islamic studies or Middle Eastern studies, as the diagram shows. If you've chosen to obtain a degree in Arabic and Middle Eastern Studies or Arabic and Islamic Studies, then you are required to spend an academic year in Morocco or Jordan in order to practice the language and immerse in the culture. And this will take place before progression to the second year of the degree. Again, it's explained hopefully clearly in this diagram. I wonder if we have questions at this point.
Yes, Sama, I think we have a few questions in the chat at the side. Are you able to see it?
Just 1 second.
So we have questions about overseas qualifications, about the number of optional modules, the level of Arabic, various things there between sort of 2:14, 2:13 p.m. and right up until just now.
Right, okay. For the overseas qualifications, actually, we need to check that. And we've got colleagues at the department who they can see if the degree is equivalent to an England, a degree from British universities or is lower. So that will be actually checked by our colleagues. And for the Arabic modules, actually, like I said, it's actually starting from total beginners, so no prior knowledge of the language is required. And then if the students are going to graduate with an Arabic degree, they will be fluent in the language. And some of our past graduates actually progressed to do MA in translation and interpretation and to work in that field. And if there is any other questions I've missed, Olivia?
Was that the question about the optional modules, Samar? The number of optional modules you can choose from.
Okay, the optional. Let's go back to the optional modules. Okay, so these the optional modules. Like I mentioned earlier, we've got 3 compulsory modules they have to do. Now, depending on their progression route, for example, if they are going to study a degree in Islamic studies, in that case, there is another compulsory module which will be Introduction to Islam, and they are going to take also Arabic for beginners, and depending on if they like to do Middle Eastern, Introduction to the Middle East, or these other 2 modules, Roman culture and Islam, or Islam in Western societies. If they are interested in the Arabic degree, that means Arabic and Islamic studies, or Arabic and Middle Eastern studies, actually Arabic language is compulsory. It will be major, so they will study each year for around 7 hours a week Arabic language, which plus the year abroad. And yeah, and if they want to do BA in Middle Eastern studies, the 4th compulsory module will be Introduction to the Middle East. I hope that explains these optional modules.
Thank you, Samar. I think Kelly had an excellent question. Apologies if you've already answered this. Do you teach standard Arabic only, or any of the vernacular varieties?
No, actually, we teach the modern standard Arabic. We introduce kind of colloquial, but it's really very, very basic, because the main is to teach the modern standard Arabic, which we call the Fusha. because it will help the student wherever they travel to the Arab world, and they are able to communicate on that level. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, Kelly, if it doesn't, please do continue to type in the chat box. But I see you have a thanks there, so I hope that's covered that for you. Shall we continue, Samar? And then if people have more questions later, please do feel free to ask them. Thank you.
Okay, just 1 second. And this picture shows some of our past graduates, and we will cover a little about past students and their destinations after completing their degrees. The career options, our past students have gone on to postgraduate study, teaching, and a wide range of careers in different sectors like banking, journalism, and business. Here are some quotes from graduates describing what they felt they gained from their studies with us. I'll leave you with that. And the case study of one of our graduates, Rushna, who actually now just started her PhD at the University of Leeds. She joined us in last September. And I'll leave you for a minute to read. The teaching team includes myself, Dr. Abdel Basit Sheikh, who will talk to you later about Islamic Spain, and we have as well our tutor, Ms. Sajda. Thank you again for your interest in this program. I hope the overview presentation was useful. You are now welcome to ask any questions you may have.
Thank you, Samar. Please do feel free to ask questions now, everyone, either using the chat function on the right-hand side, or if you'd like to raise your hand, then we as moderators can switch your audio on and actually hear from you if you'd prefer to speak. So any questions for Samar at this point, folks? Ahmad, I can see you are asking questions about your specific situation in terms of your prior qualifications. I think it might be best if we arrange a guidance appointment for you so you can get some really good advice on that from one of our impartial guidance advisors. But we'll be telling you a little bit about that at the end and also sending you the link to book appointments. I also see, Ahmed, you have a question about when admission is starting. Samar, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, the admission already started, and if you are applying for a full time, you apply through UCAS, But if you are applying for the part-time, you need to contact us in order to send you the application form.
Thank you, Jenny, for sharing the email address to request application forms for anyone who wants to apply part-time. Has anybody else got any questions before we move on to the finance? No, it seems like everyone's happy. As we've said, there are going to be times throughout where you can ask questions. So once John has told us a little bit about student finance, and then again during Abdul's presentation on Islamic Spain. So unless anyone has any more questions now, I think I'll hand over to John to tell us a little bit about the support for students. Oh, hang on a minute. Will has a question. I would be interested in history, language, and cultural links between Europe and Arabic worlds. Are these topics covered in these courses? Samar, can you answer that, please?
About the language history is it will be covered, but later on in the degree is at a higher level, and yeah.
Oh, sorry, Shno, I missed your message. What is the course language, English or Arabic?
It's
Apologies,
English.
my dog is barking.
It is English, of course, yeah. But when you are at a high level of the Arabic language, like in year 2, 3, it will be the Arabic modules taught mixture Arabic and English.
Thank you, Samar. Okay, I'm going to introduce John Lees now, who's going to take us through some of the information about student support for studying as an adult. Over to you, John.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming along to the session today. It's great to see so many people with great questions as well. So I'm just going to take a couple of moments to go over a couple of things around student finance, things that you kind of is a good idea to have to know. The first thing is that you don't need the cash up front to pay for going to university in most cases. As long as you're eligible, there are loans available from the government which will cover both your tuition fees and also provide you with some living costs or a maintenance loan as well, which you can use for your living costs while you're studying. There's additional support for people with dependents, so that can be children or adults who are dependent on you, and also additional support financially for people with disabilities or learning differences as well. Key things to know about student finances is that after 30 years, any remaining debt that you have from the loan is completely wiped. It's very unlike any other loan that you'd ever take out. It doesn't go on your credit files, and you only start paying back your student loan after you earn over £26,000. So it's really key to know that it is affordable to go to university, and it really shouldn't put you off considering going. So also, you can apply now for student finance for full-time courses. So you can actually submit an application now if you would want to do that. And part-time options will be open from about June time, we expect. Really simple way to find out what you might be eligible for is to go onto the student finance calculator. The links you should see in front of you now, the middle one that is, can give you a really good estimation of what you could be eligible for, and what government loans and grants and bursaries are the things you don't have to pay back you could be entitled for. And there's lots of information available on our website as well. And we also at the bottom have a online resource bank which covers has documents on a lot of really useful information to know about, such as a wide variety of things of what you could be eligible for and totals that you could potentially get access to financially speaking. It's a really short overview here, so it's worth me saying that we are actually running a student finance session on Thursday at 2 o'clock again. online, and we will send you the details out after this session. So you're very, very welcome to join that session, and that will give you a chance to ask any in-depth questions that you may have and find out in a lot more detail about student finance. And please, I would urge anybody with any questions, please do get in contact with us as well, and we can always, try and help with any questions around student finance. So that's the short overview on student finance, and I'm going to pass over now to Dr. Abdul Sheikh, who will go through the taster lecture.
Thank you, John. I would like to say good afternoon to all our participants. Thank you for joining our session. The session I'm going to deliver now on Islamic Spain is part of our part of the module that I actually teach on the course at present, called Islamic History and Civilization. So again, this is a current live session that I deliver every year, that I will be actually delivering to you this afternoon. So also, I'd just like to basically say to our participants that if you have any questions regarding this session that I'm going to deliver to you in a few moments, I'll be grateful if you could actually ask the questions at the end, just so that I can actually get through the presentation in the limited time that I actually have now. So, thank you for your patience and cooperation. So this is a map of the Caliphate of Cordoba. So again, the Islamic Empire in Spain lasted about 700 years. But if you look over the 700 years, it's quite it took time in order for the Arab and Islamic armies from North Africa in order to actually conquer the territory that we have colored in green, going from the southeast area, which is known as Al-Andalus, right up till the present Spanish French border. So in order to actually understand the history of Islamic Spain, it's very important that we actually understand, or we actually are aware of the actual position where this particular territory was in. So Islamic Spain was previously known as Hispania. So if you actually go back to the 3rd century, what we actually find is that the Roman Empire has very much collapsed. Power, money has actually gravitated towards Constantinople, or what's known as Istanbul. So the Roman Empire is very much in a kind of crisis where actual power is collapsing. So what you find then is that the Germanic tribes under Alaric, the Visigothic king, actually extends his control over France and Spain, and also Portugal as well. So Hispania was the actual name of the territory, France, Spain, and Portugal, that was actually ruled by the Visigoths, the Franks, between the 3rd and the 7th century. So what we find is that the Visigoths very much are actually in a bit of a battle-hardened mood, fighting with other tribes such as the Vandals and the Suevi in order to actually extend their control over areas that were previously ruled by the Romans. So this is an illustration of the most famous general, one of the famous generals in Islamic history, Tariq ibn Ziyad. The actual the actual island of Gibraltar, which is ruled by the British at the moment. The name Gibraltar is very much a corruption of the Arabic term, or Arabic phrase, should I say, Jabal at-Tariq. It refers to the mountain of Tariq. So Tariq ibn Ziyad was the one who actually took his ships from North Africa to Gibraltar, and from Gibraltar actually took his forces on to mainland Spain through the province of Andalusia, which is southeastern Spain. So Tariq ibn Ziyad, Jabal at-Tariq, the mountain of Tariq, hence we have the name Gibraltar. So Tariq ibn Ziyad very much was instructed by the Umayyad general Musa ibn Nusayd in order to actually take control of Spain. However, historians are very much divided in terms of whether the Muslims were actually invited to Spain, or was it a case where the Umayyads wanted to extend their control from North Africa onto the European continent or European mainland for the first time. So some historians have said that Count Julian of Scepter, which is Scepter and Melilla, are two coastal regions actually ruled by Spain even today, which is on the Moroccan coast. Count Julian, very much his daughter, was actually attacked by Roderick. So Count Julian actually wanted revenge on the Visigothic king, and Count Julian knew that he didn't have the forces, he didn't have the money and the energy in order to actually overcome such a powerful king as Roderick. So what Count Julian did, according to some historians, is he actually contacted Musa ibn Nusayr, who was the Umayyad general looking after North Africa on behalf of the Umayyad authorities in Damascus. So Musa ibn Nusayr actually instructed Tariq ibn Ziyad, his leading general, in order to set sail for Spain through Gibraltar. So it was a case of a war of attrition between the Arab and Muslim forces, that they actually managed to take inch by inch territory in Spain, undoubtedly helped by many Jews and many Christians in Spain, who actually wanted to see an end to the instability and disorder in Spain that lasted for 300 years since the fall of the Roman Empire. So many of the Christians and many of the Jews, according to some historians, wanted to see peace, stability, and order restored, that they wanted to actually improve their lives, wanted to create a better community, better society, and actually facilitate prosperity for all. And it's only that a famous Christian general by the name of Charles Martel, he managed to actually check the Muslim advance at the Battle of Tours in 732. So were it not for Charles Martel, France, Germany, many other European countries could have fallen to the forces of Tariq ibn Ziyad. So the actual Arab Muslim advancement in Spain was actually stopped at the Battle of Tours in 732 AD. So moving on to education, literacy, and Islamic Spain. So what we find is that Islamic Spain was very much a melting pot of cultures and civilizations, where irrespective of which religion, which culture, which race you are from, contributions were encouraged from people from all walks of life. And it was no coincidence that in Islamic Spain or Islamic Iberia, if you look at the Iberian Peninsula, you find that the literacy rates were very much higher than in most European countries because of the Islamic emphasis on education. So the first verse in the Quran, chapter 96, verse 1, where the Prophet Muhammad was instructed by God through Gabriel or Jibrail to recite in the name of thy Lord. So for the Umayyads, for the Abbasids, for the Ottomans, very much the promotion of education, being able to read and write, took precedence over even concepts such as monotheism and even prophethood and even eschatology for that matter. And also the Umayyads wanted to actually create a cultural knowledge economy, and they actually wanted to compete with the Abbasids, who actually had replaced the Umayyads in 750 AD in the Arabian Peninsula. So Cordoba and Baghdad were two cities that were actually aiming to basically square off with one another from an intellectual perspective, trying to actually outdo one another in terms of who could produce the most philosophers, who could actually publish the most books, and who could have the bigger libraries. So again, there was a friendly educational competition between Cordoba and Baghdad. So even though there was rivalry between the Abbasids and the Umayyads in terms of power and authority, but nevertheless, in relation to trading and commerce and education, people from both cities actually traveled thousands of miles to one another in order to actually exchange ideas and exchange knowledge between these two great empires during the golden age of Islam that began in the 7th century and ended in the 14th century. Knowledge and philosophy under Umayyad Spain. So we find that Averroes, or Ibn Rushd, who was a Maliki Spanish theologian philosopher, He's regarded as being the father of secularism as far as Europe is concerned. So if you look at many European countries, many governments actually do not use religion as an instrument to actually rule over their subjects. So you have a law that basically takes into account the interests of all people, not just one particular religious group. So many European governments, I think Nick Clegg, who was the Deputy Prime Minister a few years ago, he said that were it not for Islam and the contribution of the Muslims in Spain, European governments today would not basically be using this secular framework where the governments actually use a set of laws in order to actually ensure that nobody gets discriminated against or nobody feels sidelined. Caliph Abdul Rahman III, who is renowned as being one of the most famous, illustrious caliphs in Umayyad history and also the history of Islamic Spain, that many Western scholars basically praise Abdul Rahman III in terms of his vision that he actually wanted to create a society where Jews, Christians, and Muslims lived in harmony, respected one another, and he actually had a great deal of affection for knowledge, and this was basically manifest through the collection of books that were actually housed in some of the biggest libraries in Europe, if not the world, in Cordoba. And those scholars who actually excelled in medicine and in ancient sciences, they were actually given particular titles like professorships and other awards in order to basically recognize their excellence in terms of their contribution to the fields of the sciences and medicine. Al-Mustansir al-Hakam II, he actually built upon the work of his predecessor by actually building a purpose-built university for teaching and research, for attracting the finest teachers, scholars, and also students who were able to access the finest libraries in Cordoba that actually housed hundreds and thousands of books on the arts, humanities, and sciences. So it's no coincidence that Cordoba became one of the world's leading centers for medicine, as we'll see in a moment. It actually meant that Cordoba actually became one of, if not the leading center in terms of advancements in surgery, medicine, and also philosophy as well. However, if we actually look at the history of Islamic Spain, we find that things were not always rosy. There wasn't always this culture of respect, tolerance, understanding of one another's cultures. So Al-Mansur, who was the vizier or the equivalent of a prime minister under the rule of Hisham II, he actually felt that many of the Muslims in Spain were actually kind of deviating from their religion or basically acquiring other ideas that might conflict with their Islamic beliefs. So he actually ordered the burning of many of the books in the libraries. A lot of effort had gone in to collect these books, but many of these books, especially on astronomy, logic, any sort of views that were actually contradicted or were seen to be against mainstream Islamic beliefs were actually burnt. And it was later, after the Reconquista of Spain under Ferdinand and Isabella in 1492, that mass-scale burning of books actually took place again after the Muslims left Spain in 1492. So again, this is an illustration of Avenzoar or Ibn Zuhr. So Avenzoar was the earliest known experimental surgeon. Again, he actually used this method called empiricism, using the naked eye, using observation in order to actually find out more about, say, for example, the human anatomy or the anatomy of an animal. So he actually was the one who actually devised a number of methods in order to actually, before conducting surgery. So Ibn Zuhr was quite, never actually conducted experiments on human beings. He would actually always try to use animals. Again, animal rights activists probably would take exception to the methods of Ibn Zuhr, but nevertheless, during this particular time, going back to the 10th century, we find that Ibn Zuhr actually used experiments, testing on animals and to see whether these experiments were successful or these surgical procedures before they will be used on human beings. Also, Ibn Zuhr is to be credited with the first attempt at engaging in dissections of animals and also post-mortem. So post-mortems today are actually used especially by the medical profession, especially where they cannot find the cause of death. Today we have also MRI scanners and non-invasive techniques that can actually try to establish the cause of death in people, especially where a cause cannot be found. So post-mortems are used today. So Ibn Zuhr gets the credit in terms of actually developing this pioneering method of actually trying to investigate the cause of death. Also, surgery was established as an independent discipline of medicine. So Ibn Zuhr spent a lot of time creating the equivalent of a degree course in medicine, allowing people to receive the requisite knowledge, experience, practical training in order to become surgeons. They also had to undergo supervision before they would be allowed to engage in conducting operations independently, because the last thing you wanted was someone to suffer an injury or even death as a result of a person not actually just being newly qualified or not being supervised. And also Ibn Zuhr defined the roles of a general practitioner, GP, that you would actually go to if you're actually ill, if you've got minor ailments. So the actual job description of a GP was actually devised by Ibn Zuhr, and the job description of a surgeon. Abul Qasim, he was the founder of modern surgery. He actually is credited with designing surgical tools, actually providing detailed drawings, technical designs with their measurements. And some of these tools are even used in neurosurgery when you actually carry out surgery on the brain. For example, those people who suffer from epilepsy, namely, they will have certain operations on the brain in order to basically, actually alter the chemical balance in the brain. So Avenzoar also gave the first accurate descriptions of neurological disorders. I mean, this was pioneering stuff. I mean, in order to understand the actual how the brain works, the brain is a very complex organ. So Ibn Zuhr did a great deal of work in terms of detailing actually describing diseases such as meningitis, intracranial thrombopolitis, medicinal germ cell tumors, and also contributed towards modern neuropharmacology. So this was revolutionary stuff. For example, meningitis, the way you actually avoid getting meningitis is having an injection. But today, many people, meningitis is on the increase because people are not actually choosing to be vaccinated. So this is a current issue that many people have, that they actually contract meningitis, especially many students as well, who have not had the vaccine early during childhood. Averroes, or Ibn Rushd, he suggested the existence of Parkinson's disease. Again, Muhammad Ali, who was the most famous boxer of all time, known as the greatest boxer of all time, he was the most famous person to actually have Parkinson's disease as a result of blows to the brain during his boxing career. So Averroes actually suggested that Parkinson's disease actually existed because of repeated blows to the brain. It was basically a disease that actually affected the brain, causing uncontrollable shaking especially in the arms and in the body as well. And Maimonides, who was a Jewish philosopher, theologian, who actually wrote extensively in Arabic and Hebrew, he also provided a detailed explanation of neuropsychiatric disorders such as schizophrenia, paranoia, and also described rabies as well. So rabies, those of you who are not aware of it, people can contract rabies, especially if they're bitten by dogs and they don't actually get cured quickly. That people can also even today die of rabies, which can cause a fever and severe aches and pains in the body. This is an illustration of the Court of the Lions, part of the Alhambra Palace, or Qasr al-Hamra. They actually use the Arabic language, which is basically this particular palace is in Granada, in Spain. As far as our look at civil infrastructure is concerned, many dams or canals transporting water from one location to another were created, especially in Islamic Spain. So the Umayyads had experience of actually creating these water networks, transporting water from one location to another in Syria and in Iraq. So they actually brought this knowledge with them when they actually migrated after their defeat by the Abbasids in 750, when they migrated westwards, that they actually built irrigation systems in order to actually allow barren land to become fertile, that they could actually cultivate crops there. And also today, many of these water supply networks known as qanats or canals are actually used in order to move water from one location to another, and used in Sicily, for example, and large parts of Spain. And also many dams were created, thus creating reservoirs or water supplies where water could be released to certain areas at different times of the year in order to stop flooding. And again, when the Muslim ruled actually ended in 1492, the Spanish created their own civilization, their own empire in Central and South America. So a lot of the Spanish authorities, especially after the Reconquista, when Ferdinand and Isabella took control of Spain, they actually created their own. Their successors created their own empire, actually exported these technical systems in relation to water supply and dams, took this technology and this education to Central and South America and recreated this technology there. Cities such as Cordoba had advanced domestic water systems where actually water went to people's houses, and also sewage systems removing removing waste in an efficient manner. Whereas in Europe, for example, you had a lot of people suffering from cholera and other diseases as a result of the fact that the actual rubbish and waste products were not actually removed in an efficient manner. And also in Cordoba, the authorities sent people around to basically pick up litter, get rid of rubbish, like you have binmans today coming on a weekly or fortnightly basis. So there was this great emphasis on cleanliness or hygiene, which basically very much is in tune with Islamic teaching in terms of being clean at all times and making sure your environment is clean as well. And in Cordoba, you had the first street lamps that were actually built in Europe, especially in the streets of Cordoba, where especially provided a great deal of security for people to walk about at night. Whereas in Europe, for example, these concepts were quite alien. I think the only thing that probably existed was a candle being lit. So again, safety and security was very much of paramount importance for the authorities. So you have purpose-built street lamps created in order to ensure that people were safe at all times. Also, this is just an illustration of the horseshoe architecture feature within the Great Umayyad Mosque in Cordoba. And again, this is just another illustration of the Great Palace in Granada as well. Right, so if you have any questions, I would be happy to actually field any questions. I hope you've actually enjoyed this session. Yes, if you want to basically type your question, and I will try to actually answer that. Now I'll actually be going back to, I'll be handing back to Olivia now.
Thank you very much, Abdul. I certainly enjoyed that. It's a really interesting topic. And yes, Mohammed, I agree. I would very much like to go to Spain once all these difficult times are over. Thank you, Abdul. That was a really fascinating presentation. The photos were beautiful and I've learnt a lot. If anyone would like to ask any questions of Abdul now is your time. So again, please do use the chat function if you haven't done so yet, or if you'd like to ask a question using the audio, if you want to raise your hand, you just click on the little person with their hand up below the PowerPoint slide, and we can switch your audio on and actually hear you speak. So please do ask any questions. Thank you for all your very positive feedback. It's lovely to see, Abdul, isn't it? People have clearly really enjoyed your talk there.
Yes, thank you, Olivia. I'm glad that everybody's actually enjoyed the talk, and this is just a flavour of what I teach on the Islamic History and Civilization module. So I mean, our students love it every year. So there's nothing else I can say now. So I will hand back to you now, Olivia.
Okay, so please do use this time before we conclude the session to ask any final questions if you have any, either about the Islamic Spain taster session or the course as a whole, entry requirements, finance, anything you'd like to ask myself, Samar, John, or Abdul. Thank you, Shno. We have a question here. What are work opportunities after graduating? Samar, would you like to tell us a little bit about that? Because you've worked with so many graduates now who've gone on to various different paths. I know that there's a very high proportion going into postgraduate study, but after that, I think you mentioned translating, teaching, journalism. I think we've had people working for the government as well in the past, but Abdul or Samar, please do add any other careers that you've known graduates go on to that.
Hi everyone. I mean, one of the careers that our former student went into is banking in Leeds. One of our students actually, graduated in Arabic, Islamic, Middle Eastern Studies, and she managed to find a job as a risk compliance officer. So it's basically a graduate scheme. So the degree doesn't restrict anybody in terms of going into a particular career path, because employers are actually not looking for the subject that you've actually studied at university. It's the actual personal transferable skills that you actually gain from the degree. So nobody should think that, oh, I've got a degree in Islamic studies or Arabic and Middle Eastern studies, I won't be able to get a job. No, employers are actually looking for people who have an excellent subject grounding, whether it's history, politics, Middle Eastern studies, Islamic studies, Arabic language. So it's the skills that they are actually after more than the actual subject area. Hence, you have, for example, many history graduates go into banking. You might think, well, what's the connection between banking and history? So that just goes to show that the world's your oyster. If you work hard, you strive, you can basically achieve what you want to achieve, but you've got to be prepared to do hard work, and employers are looking for people with a variety of skills and knowledge.
Yes, Abdul, that's a very good point. I think people often think that they must study a subject directly related to the career they want to go into, but actually a lot of universities now are offering transferable skills through their different degree programs, and that's what employers really are looking for. John, would you be able to answer the question about universal credit? Because I know that will be in a few people's minds around benefit eligibility and student finance.
Yeah, sure. It really depends on whether you're studying the part-time course or the full-time course as to whether you can continue claiming certain benefits or not. I would say, however, the best thing to do, if you can, would be to come along to the session on Thursday, and we'll be going over it in a lot more detail. But certainly, just by claiming universal credit, it wouldn't make you ineligible to then apply for student finance. But certainly, come along on Thursday from 2 o'clock, and we can look into it in a bit more detail for you. Or if you can't attend, then send us an email, and myself or my colleague Paul can get back to you about that.
Thank you, John. And the general rule of thumb is that the student financial support package from Student Finance England should replace benefits in some cases, depending on the type of benefit, but we can give individual advice on that through our guidance service. So there's many other questions here. I'm just having a look. Where to do the test if I don't have the required entry qualifications. So as we've said, the entry qualifications are much more flexible for mature applicants. You don't necessarily need A levels and so on. But if you email us at the Lifelong Learning Centre at leeds.ac.uk, we can tell you about the alternative entry scheme and when the tests are happening for that and how online. And a question about GCSE maths. Can I apply before I get my GCSE English? Samar, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, of course you can apply, and we can give you the matriculation test if you joining us before gaining the GCSE English. You, of course, like I said, we have this matriculation test in order to actually make sure the students are able to study at this level.
Any final questions before we bring the session to a close? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is take you through a few bits of post-session information. So hopefully you will be able to contact us through those and ask any more questions you may have. Just bear with me for one moment. Right, I hope you have enjoyed today's taster session. As we said at the beginning, this is new technology for us as well. So thank you for bearing with us while we've gone through the taster today. Jenny has put up a poll for us, which we'd really like you to take a moment to answer. It's up on the screen now. And the question is, how useful did you find today's session? And it's very easy. You just click on whichever option most applies to you, and we won't be offended. Please give us your feedback. There will be a follow-up email sent round after today, which will include a lot of information about our advice and guidance service. And that is an opportunity to book a one-to-one telephone appointment with one of our advisors, Mohammed or Denise. This is a free, impartial and confidential service to help answer your questions about studying at university, about finance, about the courses on offer, and very much about your individual situation. And anyone who doesn't already have a UK degree or equivalent and is over the age is 19 or over is eligible for one of those appointments. But if you don't fit into that category and you have any questions, just email us at the Lifelong Learning Centre address we've given above. The email will also include a link to our landing page where all our future events will be, including the online student finance event this Thursday at 2 o'clock, which you're more than welcome to attend. And we are planning to put tasters for other subject areas up. So please do keep an eye on that page, and if you want to come to future taster sessions or information sessions about particular courses or higher education in general, that's a good place to find out about them. What I've just pasted into the chat on the side is a link to our evaluation form. Thank you very much for all of you who've completed the poll that's happening on the screen now. The evaluation form is a little bit longer than that, but not very much longer. We always really appreciate people's feedback and responses. We constantly review and evaluate how we deliver our activity, and obviously we're having to change that quite a lot at the moment. So any feedback as honest as you can give us would be really appreciated. It's a very short online form that we'll be sending you the link to, and it's there if you want to go and do it straight away. And we will also, in the follow-up email, we'll give you the contact details of all the presenters today, so you can ask us any additional questions. There'll also be some videos of some of our students talking about their can be really valuable if you like to actually hear some of the students speak, because that's the part that we would normally be able to provide if you were with us face to face at the university. And we're also including a link from Abdul to give you some additional resources on Islamic Spain, so you can explore that further, because I think there was a lot of interest in that area. Just a couple more things to say. The email will also point you towards our Returning to Study Facebook page, which anyone can join, and it's a really nice way of interacting with other learners, and you can ask questions, you can ask current mature students who are studying at the university what it's like to study as an adult, and they can take you through their experience, which can be really helpful when you're thinking about whether you want to take that step yourself. And as we said before, the email will also include a link to the recording of this session, so you can look back on anything that wasn't clear. I'm just going to have a little bit of a glance through the chat. Thank you, Daniel, for putting the link to the Facebook Return to Study Facebook page there, if anybody would like to join. I probably won't get to see all your comments because I'm aware of time now, but I'm getting the sense from what you're saying that you have enjoyed. I know I have. So thank you again for participating. We're really grateful that you came and joined us. It would be a bit lonely if we were here talking on our own. You will hear from us, as I say, in your email in the next few days. If you have any questions, thoughts, comments, please do get in touch. And to leave the session, you just need to click on the 3 horizontal lines in the top left-hand part of the screen and select Leave Session, which appears at the bottom of that area. So go to the top left of the screen, click on the 3 horizontal lines, and then you can leave the session. And we hope to see you